as red. She's got the spices, smile so bright. Cooking with Judith right by my side. By my side. Chop, chop, sizzle, frying pan heat. From pancakes to a fancy feast. Cooking with Judith, fun to say the least. The least.
Hello and welcome to my kitchen. I'm Judith, and today we're gonna do beef noodle soup. This is the kind of thing I do when I clean out my fridge. I did make beef stock yesterday. I will show you how I did that coming up. And I have the leftover beef that we scraped off the bones. The beef stock there. Some various vegetables. A little bit of thyme and bay leaf and some salt. And I chose to go with the rigatoni noodles. You could use broad egg noodles or whatever you prefer. But we're going to start with our aromatics, which is onion, celery, carrot, and continue from there. So let's get cooking. So for my beef broth, I have a bunch of leftover steak bones. I do like to buy bone-in steak and then trim the bones out after cooking and use them for soup. I have a beef soup bone, which weighs just under a pound, and a pound of marrow bones. So we're going to brown these in the oven, and then we're going to put everything in a big stock pot and fill it with water. A few peppercorns and a bay leaf. And that's going to cook for several hours until it comes out just absolutely delicious. So that was about 40 minutes or so in a 350-degree oven. And I did turn the bones once. Now we have them nice and browned. I'm going to put them in a pot. Get a stock pot or a large Dutch oven will work just fine. And if you notice, there is a lot of grease in that pan. I am not putting that in. But I am going to put in my steak bones. Just dump it all in there. Everything in the pot. We are now going to cover the bones with water. There we go. You don't have to completely submerge them, but covered as well as you can get them. Try to switch them down there. Come on, guys. There we go. Then, as I said, some peppercorn. So I'm going to do about a half a teaspoon of peppercorns. And feel free to use colored ones if you want. I'm just using black peppercorn. And a good-sized bay leaf. We're going to cover, bring it to a boil, and let it simmer as long as you can. Checking every now and then to make sure the water isn't boiling away. Now, occasionally during the cooking process here, you want to check to see if there's any scum on your broth. And there is, so take a nice fine sieve. Now I've already de-scummed this once, but we have to do it again. And just scoop that off, pour it into a bowl. If you don't have a fine sieve like this, a spoon works. It's a little more difficult to do. These little sieves do not cost a lot. They are so handy for scooping the scum off of things. And oil. It will take a lot of the fat off as well. Well, most of the broth will go through the sieve, but the grease and the scum stay in the sieve. And that was so easy. So just periodically take the lid off, check for scum. If it's there, clean it up. The stock has been cooking for 6 hours, and I have taken it off the heat and let it cool for about half an hour. And now it's time to strain it. So I'm just going to pull all the bones out. And I do have another bowl that I'm going to put the bones in. I just wanted to get the majority of the bones out so that I could strain things more comfortably. There we go. Okay. So now we're just going to pour it all through the strainer. There we go. All the peppercorns, all the bones, all the extraneous bits have been strained out. What we have now is just pure beef broth. So this is going to go to the fridge overnight, and we will make soup tomorrow. Now the reason for putting our beef broth in the fridge overnight is this. This is the fat that accumulated on top. Now you could use your beef broth without refrigerating it and without removing the fat. Just be aware you will have fat, quite a bit more fat in your soup if you do. Not a bad thing, but I prefer to remove it. And you don't have to get it all out. You don't have to be completely assiduous about this. I just like to get rid of most of it. That reduces the fat level in the soup. I'm just going to transfer that into a vessel that's easier to pour from. Okay, we've got a large Dutch oven, and now that we've got it warmed up on a low heat, I'm going to add about a tablespoon of oil. Any oil you prefer. I use avocado oil. Then I have just under a cup and a half of yellow onion. That was 1 onion. And slightly more than a cup of celery. It was 3 stalks of celery. And I have half a cup each of carrot and purple top turnip. And I'm going to put in 1 bay leaf and a teaspoon of thyme. And then about a half a teaspoon of salt. Don't want to put it all in right away because I want to make sure it doesn't end up too salty. Nothing worse than having your soup too salty. So we'll let that cook. Oh dear, I do hate it when that happens to the onions. Break that up. So we'll let that cook until the onions are translucent, and then we have more to add. There you go, so 3 to 5 minutes, and our onions are lovely and translucent. Now we add my secret ingredient. I have found to make the best beef soup, add a tablespoon of tomato paste. Get that in there and let it cook. Cook out the sharpness. just give that a minute or so. And then we add more things. 2 to 3 minutes, we're going to start adding our beef broth. Oh, it's smelling delicious already. Okay. So I have about 6.5 cups of beef broth. And I did put a cup in a tub in the freezer, so that made 7 cups of beef broth. Give it a stir. At this point, I'm going to turn the heat up a little bit and put the lid on and wait for it to come to a simmer. Now that we have our soup up to a simmer, I've got a couple more things to add. I have about 2 cups of diced potatoes. And it's okay if some of the water goes in with them. I have half a cup of chopped green beans. And get those stirred in. And we're going to taste for seasoning. Well, let's have a bit of a taste here. Definitely needs more salt. So in goes the rest of our salt. Okay, that's better. But it does need a little something else. So I think some freshly ground pepper. Always a good go-to. I'm thinking there's something else it needs. I will think about it. Well, that didn't take long. What it needs is some freshly chopped parsley. So, that's about 5 tablespoons. 4 to 5. So let's see how that does now that that's in there. And of course the flavor will get stronger as it cooks. Yeah, much better. Okay. Now that we've got it seasoned, we need it to get back to a simmer, and we got to cook those potatoes, and then we'll add the last bits. And I was thinking about it a little more, and what I decided it needed was more tomato. So that's half a cup of strained tomato. Let's get a taste now, see how we're doing. And this is the best way to cook soup. Okay, yep, like that. Always adjust, add, check, adjust again, and use your imagination. So now that our potatoes are soft, we really only have 2 more things to add, and that's our noodles. And that's 3.5 grams of rotini. You can add more or less depending on what you want. And we're going to let those cook 10 minutes or so before we add the meat. And yeah, we did pick the meat off the bones. You don't want to waste that. It's still got a lot of goodness and flavor in it. Yeah, that was 10 minutes. Let's see how our pasta is doing. Looks like it's cooked. Actually, it looks partially cooked. Yep, doing well. It won't take long. Won't take long for it to be fully cooked. So we're going to add our meat. And as you can see, our soup is getting very thick. If you need to water it down, go ahead. A little bit of water never hurt anything. I'm going to turn the heat down just a bit, because we don't need to cook the meat, it's already cooked. We just need to finish off the pasta, and we could actually turn it right off. So I started cooking about 3:30. It's now 4:46. Just in time for dinner, provided you made your stock the night before. As I said, this soup gets fairly thick, but not thick broth-wise. The broth is still thin. It's just so loaded with vegetables and things that there isn't much room for the broth. So let's give it a taste here in the broth first. Oh, that's nice. And serve with some lovely crusty buns. Let me break in the bun. A little bit of butter maybe. Dip. The reason I use the marrow bones as well as soup bone. The marrow bones provide a lot of fat and collagen, and so does the soup bone. The soup bone provides some collagen, not much fat, depending on what you can find. Some of them are very fatty, some aren't. But I generally try to remove most of the fat from the stock. But the collagen is there. And that's why I don't dispose of the meat from the bones, but use it as well. Because you might notice there is a lot of gel, like jelly-like substance with the meat. That's the collagen. And collagen is a very good thing for you. People spend fortunes trying to get collagen. They buy powders and concoctions and tonics, and so you can get it from your food. Oh, this tastes so good. And it will freeze wonderfully. If you want to put it in the freezer and save it for a dark, dismal day, I want to thank you all for watching. Thank you so much for everything you've done to help me advance my channel. Please, if you enjoyed the video, give it a thumbs up. If you liked the recipe, definitely make it. Let me know in the comments what you thought of it. If you haven't subscribed, please consider doing so. I'd appreciate it very much. Thank you all so much for watching, and I'll be back again next week with a new recipe.